Let's get into this as soon as the stream catches up. Here we go. There's always a slight delay. I guess it's a buffering thing, but it's always like 3 or 4 seconds behind. There we go. All right. Hand reviews from Sunday Fun Day. It was a great day. Obviously not the greatest result I wanted, but I made back more than 2.5 times all my buy-ins. So, it was a very profitable day, and I was very happy to have it. I will say I did change a few things with what I was doing, just small things in the mid stages. And I think it made a big difference. I also, of course, won some really good races, had some interesting situations that you guys are going to see here. But I think making a couple adjustments really helped in certain spots. I think it was very interesting. And you'll see them as they come up. So first hand to start, very early in the start. We're just going to go through chronologically. So this is earlier in this tournament. So we raise, we see a 3-bet, fairly standard for the button. Button usually can go smaller because it does have positional advantage. We call, flop a gutty and not much else. Goes check, check, check. This is one of those situations, by the way, it seems like a bad board for the 3-better, but it's really not. Because if you think about the ranges that I open with and the ranges that 3-bet me on the button, and then there's a cold call out of the small blind for that 3-bet. Now, it is still very early, and it's Sunday. People make a lot of mistakes. And a lot of players are playing loose and stuff like that. I'm probably c-betting this flop pretty much every time. And you don't have to bet big. You can bet, 8 blinds here. Maybe 7 if you want to be a little conservative. And I think you just win the pot here a ton. I think a lot of times you're up against, hands like I have, suited, aces. Maybe there's some kind of, suited connector like 10 jack or some big cards out of the small blind maybe that are willing to get it in with one pair. Who knows? It could be, it could be pairs, but in all honesty, I think you would have seen from a 40 big blind stack, I think you would have seen a jam with something really good. So like, personally, I know that you're supposed to jam it with, pocket 10s and better. But I think players play a little bit too snugly, although it is the start of the tournament. So I would imagine pocket jacks would probably just jam off rather than call. But I think here's the thing. Even if they are calling to see a safe flop and then get it in, you bet 7 blinds here on the button. I think you win the majority of the time. And when you get jammed on, you can just fold, right? Like, how much worse off are you for giving up 7 blinds to try to win this pot? So I think this is a big mistake by the button here. I turned the gut shot, which is great, right? It checks to me, and I decide to go ahead and just bet big because this is a scenario where I'm up against draws, if anything, and anybody who has something that will call me, I beat. So somebody who has, 2 pair or a set, which is unlikely, but, this small blind could have been trapping a set and then now going conservative because of this, the straight draw out there. But they may see this as bullshit, and that's the point of this bet. Betting this large when I've made my best possible hand, people just really don't see it coming. You know what I'm saying? So a guy with 1 pair will go fucking ape shit here. And we see a jam all in. We get the fold out of the small. We call. River comes off. And there's the old 10-9. So player 3-bet the 10-9 on the button. Honestly, didn't flop, equity that was too bad. He had runners to straights and flushes. He had 2 overcards. I don't understand why he didn't bet the flop. And then if he's going to jam the turn, it just seems like the worst play ever because now he's definitely up against a straight. So he needs a flush or he needs a better straight. So even, let's say he assumes I have the straight, right? That means I have a 7. That means there's 3 7s in the deck. 2 of them aren't clubs. So that's 2 non-club outs and 9 clubs. That's, 11 cards. It's 22% with 1 card to come. Why are you jamming? Like, this is just a fuck it bet. So This is a hand that I think my opponent really played poorly. If they had just bet the flop, we both fold. There's no reason to continue. And here's the thing. If you bet the flop for 7 blinds, right? Check it out. You bet the flop for 7 blinds here, and I call it, let's say. Or the small blind calls it, which is more likely, right? Small blind could have a pair. Small blind could have, straight and flush draws, all that kind of stuff. So it's more likely the small blind calls. Let's say he does. That puts 36 in the middle, leaving this player behind with 26 blinds. When the turn comes off like this and you have the 10-9 of clubs and it's you two heads up, he's going to check. You just jam a lamb. And now you can do it because you're setting up a good 3-bet pre-flop, bet flop, jam turn. Your hand could just be aces, right? Just aces. So your opponent's going to find it very hard to call with anything other than exactly a straight. But remember, they'd have to call pretty wide on this flop if you bet. So this hand was supremely messed up, and it was a gift. It was a total Sunday special right there. See a raise out of first and a call. I elected to call in this instance because we are really deep. I've doubled up early in this tournament, and I don't really want to get crazy in here. Plus, being out of position, I'd rather be calling more often versus 3-betting, especially with the good hands I want to see flops with, like suited ace-queen. Ace-queen offsuit, I may have 3-bet it, but it's kind of not necessary. Plus, this player is raising out of first. Should be a stronger range. Super small raise, though, for this stage of the tournament, right? Flop the queen. No reason to bet because anything that beats me, I don't want to bet into, and anything that doesn't, I want to bluff. Player now bets, again, small into 2 players, though it's not too noteworthy. He goes ahead and bets. I go ahead and check raise. This is exactly what I want to do. This is my best hand right here, so best made hands and draws, best for strong moves, right? He does call it, which is kind of concerning, but the truth of the matter is, unless he has pocket 10s, I think I'm good, right? Because if he's going to have aces or kings, let's say, he's not going to just call this 15 big blinds. He's going to re-raise, because I have just check-raised him on this board with no 3-bet pre-flop. Shouldn't I just have king-jack a lot, right? So if you have, pocket kings or aces, you should just want to get the money in, especially if you have aces, because now I only have 6 outs against you. So I don't think this call is ever an overpair when it's played this way, unless the player is truly gambling. But this player is almost at a starting stack, so why would you do that? And it's too early in the tournament. It's too sophisticated to move for a Sunday at this buy-in level. So we get it heads up. And, of course, now there's 42 in the pot. He's got 51 behind. It's a jam all day. If he's heroing me or if he made an embarrassment call, he might just say, fuck it. And he called. And my man had ace-jack. This is what I talk about when I talk about the E call. That's what I have it as in my head. He led the flop, got called, got check-raised, and then couldn't fold. Like, he was embarrassed to fold. So he calls. The turn, he picks up a open-ender, right? He can hit a 9 or a king. And or I guess that's a double gutter, right? He can hit a 9 or a king, and now he has to call, right? So when I jam, he knows he has to hit those cards to win. And the funny part is, he could be drawing to just one end. He could be drawing to just the king, because I could have Jack 9 easily. So to me, this is another one that was a Sunday special, very poorly played. But don't be afraid of that embarrassment call on the flop. Like, oh, why is he calling me? He's a bad player. Good players don't call there. The only hand a good player calls there with is pocket 10s. And hey, man, if you got pocket 10s when I flop top pair, when I'm underplaying my hand out of the small blind in a multi-way pot early in a tournament at the micros, congratulations. You're going to bust me. Because that's way too many conditions for this thing to ever be relevant. It's going to be too rare. This is the common scenario. A poor player. Pocket duckies. This is an interesting hand, if I remember correctly. I raise from the button. I get 3-bet. We do call. The odds are almost there. It costs me 6.5 to win the pot immediately of 20 or 19, and he's got 44 behind. So what is that? 53-63. So it's close. It's like 9.5 to 1. Um, Player checks after 3-betting me pre-flop from the blind. Okay, I'm not betting. King comes off. Interesting. He checks and I check again. River's a 9. And this is where I made the mistake, and or the turn is where I made the mistake. But this is what I was really pissed off about, is that I saw this bet, and this is a total blocker bet. And I fucking dropped the ball. I mean, yeah, I was still settling in, and I was kind of hyped and, all like that. But I should have bet the turn, because he should have none of this board. If he doesn't have a king, he should have none of this board. But there's a lot of draws out there, and there's a lot of randos out there. And it is Sunday, so I should have just bet the board on the turn to protect my hand. And I honestly believe that, even though it's deuces. And when I see this bet on the river, he is giving me the signal to raise. If I just make it 15 right here, he just snap folds. And he did it with the ace of clubs, and he made a 9 on the river, and he blocker bet it. I'll bet if that 9 doesn't come out, he bets bigger, and I can snap call it. Because that's what I was expecting to happen, was him to bet big with something like ace-queen with the ace of clubs. So I'll bet if the 9 or a club doesn't come on the river, he's bluffing, and or if the club comes, he's bluffing, yes, and I win. And but the 9 comes, and he gets showdown value, but he doesn't want to. He could have checked in this instance. Like, what am I going to bet? Don't you want me to bluff at you? And if you lead out for that 4.3 or whatever it was, and I make it 15, are you calling with fucking fourth pair or third pair on a paired board with straight and flush draws? No. So I fucked this one up. I totally fucked this one up. It's a small fuck up. It doesn't really cost me much. You know what I'm saying? It was still early in the tournament. I did do very well in this tournament. This was the 4K $11. But I have to acknowledge this is a fuck up. And this one really bothered me. This was in my head last night after I went offline. And this was played at the beginning of the day, and I played another 5 hours after that. And I went and got something to drink, and I was like, what was that fucking hand where I missed the signal? And I thought, I was like, didn't I have like 3s or 4s? And then I came back, and I decided to go through the hand history, and sure enough, I found it, and I was like, yeah. It was like in the back of my mind for like 2 hours. It's crazy. So definitely a fuck up that I can correct next time. Like, he signaled me that he didn't want to be raised. When somebody signals you they don't want to be raised, fucking raise. Because they're not calling. I raise 6s. 10-3-3. Pretty good flop for me. I'm protecting my hand here. I am short stacked, and this player is a monster stack, so anything can happen. He decides to ram a jam all in. Don't really get this, because if you remember, I started the hand here with 28 blinds. He's got 100 on the button. He just calls. What hand on this board just calls that has me beat? That's going to jam all in here. Like, what? Is pocket 8s jamming all in here? No. Pocket 9s? No. I really don't think so. I mean, there's a 10 out there. But it seems to me it would more likely be a draw, which I'm fine with. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have a shitload of outs against me, but I got to get the money in, man. I mean, if I'm ahead right now, I really am okay with getting it in with one pair. Are they going to have a 10? I really don't think so, because what are they afraid of? Like, if they're just not going to fold anyway, why not just call me and trap me? So to me, I thought it was a draw, or just somebody with a total airball bluff. But even those should have a lot of equity against me. And I did call it. And, yeah. Pocket ducks. It's hilarious because the hands that beat me don't do that. It's one of those ones where if you have pocket eights here, you're like, maybe I'm good. You know, I should be good most of the time. And you call and take a card off. And then when the 10 hits, you're like, okay, this dude ain't got no 10. And I'm probably going to check the turn, right? Or even if I jam it, you can sit there and go, all right, he either had a pair higher than eights to start with, or I have him crushed. You know what I'm saying? But of course, the 10 comes off and counterfeits his hand. Maybe that's the reason why he did it, right? Or the 10 comes off and his eights are good, but the deuces are counterfeit. Maybe that's why he jammed the flop, because he didn't want to get counterfeited. You know what I'm saying? Because now if I have 2 overs, I have 6, 7, 8, 9 outs against him. It's kind of a lot, but it's like being up against a flush draw. Although I really think it's stupid. And this player, this was my first indicator versus this player, and you're going to see a big one that we play later. That he was very unsophisticated and had gotten very lucky to get those 100 big blinds when we started the hand. And you're going to see how that goes from here. I'm not going to tag him, but you can't see the name. It just says villain, I think, underneath. Yeah. But if you check out the stats, you'll see these same stats. 73% VPIP, pre-flop raise 55. And I had like 50 hands on him. This isn't nothing. He was playing like, he played like 35 out of 50 hands. It's fucking crazy. Ace King, same guy. Limp here, I make it 3.5. He jams all in for 84.62. Now this was about an hour later, and there are other hands that I'll show you from this guy. This is about an hour later, but after I beat him with those sixes, and you can see my stack is at 50 blinds now, or 54 blinds. So I've doubled up through him and then stolen some other pots. He got so amped to fucking get revenge on me that I just kept taking pots away from him. Like, I would raise and he would 3-bet and I would 4-bet and he would fold, or he would raise and I would 3-bet and he would fold, or I would call him pre-flop and then I would bet the flop. So like I had just kept, and the blinds have gone up. You know what I'm saying? So like this isn't 10 minutes later. This stack is about 4 times the size it was when I doubled up through him. I mean, this is a big stack, right? So it's about 3 times the size. So he jams all in here, and I'm thinking, what the utter fuck? Like, what does this mean? It never means anything. I thought for sure this would be a shitty pair, like 8s, maybe 9s, and he was just really tired of me and was just like, dude, if I can't beat this guy, I'm going to force the action. I'm going to take a race with him and try to cripple him. Like, we had mixed it up quite a bit. And then in the back of my mind, this little thought crept in, and it's going to be part of a video. And if you look closely during that video, you can see me get really quiet, and I kind of go, and it's this moment where I go, oh, wait a minute. He doesn't know how to play ace queen, ace jack, ace 10 suited, you know, all those hands. So this could be anything that I have crushed. And I gave him credit for like ace jack suited or something. And I said, I think I got to call this, even though it's a pair a lot of the time, and I don't really want to race for 50 blinds right now. I think this is one that puts me in a position to win. And, you know, my man had king queen and was dead on the turn. Pretty hilarious, huh? Gave me 100 big blinds. Remember, this guy had 100 blinds 3 levels ago. Now I have 100 blinds 3 levels later, and he's practically out of the tournament. He actually went out shortly after. So, got to understand your opponents. And it wasn't an auto call with ace king. I really thought about folding it, because that was a lot of fucking blinds. Limp call. Sunday special. Big ol' raise. Get called. All right. See a check, and I check back. Just because should be good a lot. Goes check, I check back. River goes check, I check back. This is a very common scenario. I know it seems boring, but like, my ace queen should be good a ton here, right? He's got ace 6. Players who are going to limp and call a raise are playing bad hands. That's the thing to remember. So I could have won the pot at any point, but also I was ready to call a bluff on the river. I was waiting to see a bet of like, 8 or 9 blinds, maybe, something like that. And take or even 12 blinds, I think is a good call. And, pick off a bluff. But it was very early in the tournament, so he didn't feel the need to do that. But remember, it's Sunday, 37-17. Players who are going to limp a6 and call a raise with it are not going to be the most well-rounded players. So therefore, you're going to get in a lot of checkdowns where no risk, win a nice pot. Ace king offsuit again. I go ahead and raise. Get defended against. Player leads 2.73. I have overcards and a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw. And it just seems silly to lead into the razor heads up. You're saying you have a jack? I don't buy it just yet. Because unless you have exactly like 10 jack, why would you do this? And here's the other thing. A good player with 10 jack would check raise here. You know what I'm saying? 4 on the turn. Now you've completely given up the ghost. So we just spit on this pot and bet 2/3 standard, and a player just, runs away and, kind of puts some ice on his balls because he just got fucking smashed. This is very, like, players see boards like this and they're like, how often does this guy have a jack? And they throw a bet out there, and then he gave up the ghost. If he kept betting on the turn, look at this. I have the ace of spades in my hand. Like, if he doesn't have it in his hand, I have it in my hand. If he bets the turn for this same bet, I can't continue. Like, because I'm like, shit, he doesn't even have a flush draw because I have the ace of spades. He has to have something better than that, right? I mean, like, yeah, he's in the blind, but he could have had 2 pair. He could have, just a queen jack or something. But when he bets again, I have to fold. His flop bet is just fucking pointless without a turn follow through. Ooh, this is a good one. Interesting hand. So I call a raise. Flop pretty damn good. Flush draw, backdoor straight. Micro bet means nothing usually. Pick up a 7 on the turn, pretty good. Player bets half pot, and I believe this is where I made a mistake. I should have raised this because now I just have all the equity. And I think what happened here is I lost track of the betting. Because in game, when he bets 1/5 pot on that flop, he never has an ace. Never, ever, 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 ever. And if he has something that it's worth protecting, he's going to bet bigger on the flop. So if he has, a set, or if he has, a good, a decent ace like ace 10, he's going to bet bigger than 1/5 pot. So this is a fuck up on my part, right? Because he bets this on the turn, and I have no fucking idea. I just called it. Normally here, this is a raise to 13 big blinds, maybe 14. Just because, what do you continue with? And here's the thing. If he jams, cool. We can go. We can absolutely get it in. Because he's more likely to have a draw than I am, believe it or not. And I have showdown value versus the draw. And he has a ton of hands that will fold here. Like, what do you do with pocket fucking 5s here? What do you do with pocket 10s here? You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. And that's the part of the range that I lost track of. I think I filled in his range based on the board, not so much based on actual ranges, which is a mistake I used to make a lot. In my defense, after this break, I went and ate, got some food, and I felt much better. So maybe my blood sugar was a little low, but this to me is a very obvious mistake that I made. It doesn't seem like it. 6 on the river, he checks. Let's compound the mistake and check back. It's so bad. He never showed me any strength. What am I doing? Oh, God. It's so stupid. How do I lose to pocket 9s on this fucking board with position? With position. Like, even on this river. You think you can call with 15 big blinds in this river? I mean, it's easier to because it just looks like I have a busted draw. But if I fucking raise the turn and then jam the river, there's no fucking way. Even if he decides to call the turn because of an e-call, and he has fucking 29 blinds left now, if I put him in for it, he's not calling with pocket 9s. There's no fucking way. This was my biggest mistake yesterday, I think, was this pot. And it didn't cost me a lot, But as far as game flow goes, this was my biggest mistake. It still hurts. Rays get called, monotone flop. A lot of monotone flops yesterday, by the way. I decided to just go ahead and bet big, looking like I have a king to protect. My opponent calls. I think about it for a minute. The deuce isn't great for me because a lot of times players will have a flush, an ace of clubs here with another card. And since I didn't get 3-bet pre-flop, how often does he have the ace queen or ace king with the ace of clubs? If he does have that combination, it's the ace of clubs with a deuce. So now he's just tripped it out, and I have no hope of bluffing. And then he checked, and his timing on the check was pretty fucking fast. So I was just like, oh, let me figure out the bet here. It took me a minute, and I went ahead and bet 2/3 pot or 3/4 pot, and it worked. Honestly, I think he had a shitty flush draw. Like maybe he had the 10 of clubs in his hand or something with like a queen, maybe. And just had to see me bet twice because now he doesn't know where he's at. You know what I'm saying? So good example of when you just got to bet twice. Raise out a first call. Getting about 6-1. I have a lot of chips. I'm doing pretty well here. So I call. Gutty and a flush draw. We see that donk lead again. This is usually best case scenario a pair. It's never a draw usually. So I decide to go ahead and raise it because I'm willing to get the money in right now because I feel like I have the gut shot flush draw and the 9 can be good a lot. Like I can be up against 5-6 and if I hit any one of my cards other than a 4 obviously I'm going to pull ahead. A 5, a club, or a 9 is going to win me the pot. So that's a really good distinction having the overcard too. He just calls. The 5 of clubs comes on the turn. Obviously best card in the world for me. He checks. Now I decide to check back. Just trying to make it look like I don't have the flush. And here's the funny part about this hand. When he took a second and then checked, like he kind of like took like 2 beats, like check. I immediately checked. Like I had it poised over the button, and as soon as his went check, I went click, and it was like immediate check. And then on the river, this immediately happened. He just overbet jammed all in, and it was, and I immediately snap called. And this is just a pure bluff. Like he picked up the club draw on the turn, and thought about bluffing it, but checked it. My quick check was what instigated the river snap jam, and of course gets me fully paid. And this took me a long way in this pot. And little things like that, like I literally put it over the check, space, and then as soon as he checked, I was like immediately checked it. Not auto check, but immediately checked it. So there was like this little bit of timing tell that made him think that I didn't have it and that I hated the fucking club. And you see how he just called me on the flop? Like he led out with a hand he should have 3-bet pre-flop. Although the under the gun razor is a big stack, so maybe 3-betting wasn't the move. But he leads out. I raise from the big blind. He's in the small blind. The original razor's like, what the fuck is going on here? He folds. And then this dude makes the E-call, the embarrassment call, picks up some equity on the turn, and rather than leading again, he checks. If he had led the turn again, now I'm probably jamming, but he can realistically call off here if he thinks the club is good for him, right? Let's say I just made the straight or something, or I could have 2 pair in that scenario very easily. So then he can go, well, I need a club, but you know what? Let's get it in pure. But when he's on the river, now it's just you're bluffing your entire stack for no reason. So it's pretty funny. This is a fun one. I decided to just call the Jack 10 on the button and flop pretty good. It goes check, check, of course. 4 on the turn is good. He can have diamonds. He bets big. Like, he bets like 80% pot. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And I thought about it. Should I have raised this? And at the time, I was like, well, I only have 30 blinds. Like, if I raise, we kind of have to get it all in here. what hands is he willing to risk 30 blinds with? This is, and it's another 25 blinds. It's basically half his stack left. Like, what hands is he willing to risk it with? It's going to be made hands only, right? Flushes. He could have a 10, I guess. He could have an ace jack or something with the ace of diamonds, I guess, because he did raise. He could definitely have an overpair, like queens, kings, aces. If he has the diamond with one of those, he absolutely gets it in. But if he doesn't, what am I really raising him with, right? That he can fade that heat. So I decided just to call it because I felt like it was whatever. The ace, when it came out in game, you can see it in the replay. I was like, oh, he could have an overpair, blah, 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 like that, like queens or aces. And I didn't say kings. And then the ace comes out and I go, oh, why did I say it? Because, now I lose to the aces. But here's the thing. It's a cooler. If I lose, I lose. You can't be afraid of shit like that. So he checks, and when he checks, he never has the ace, right? Never, ever, 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 ever. But what he can have is king, queen. He can also have kings that now turn their hand into a bluff. He can have an ace, king. All these hands that don't like betting but will call a bet or raise it. So he does call. I think I got the max here, all things considered, in general, because I just don't think there was a lot for our opponent to have. And I think in this instance specifically, I definitely got the max. Because my man rolled over 2 queens with no club, or with no diamonds. So I think I played it perfectly because there just wasn't enough for him to have. Kind of interesting that he bet the turn and not the flop, right? Like, if he bets the flop and I call, then I could see checking the turn. And when I check back, he can then, bet the river representing the ace. Or he can check and I can make some kind of bet and he can easily get away from it. So I think not betting the flop here is the mistake. I don't know why you don't bet the flop here. Are you expecting me to bluff? Like, I didn't raise pre-flop. I didn't 3-bet pre-flop from the button. I don't understand. Like, if you were this afraid of all the draws, why check the flop? Ace 7 off. Oh, this is just a funny one. I have 127 blinds to start the hand. This player jams for 9. And I took half a second and I went, what am I doing? I have an offsuit ace in the big blind for less than 10% of my stack. Why am I thinking about this? This is automatic. And I called it. And my opponent rolled over the ace 8. And when the 7 hit, I kind of jumped through the roof. I was like, this is a fucking sun run. So this one's just in here because I wanted to highlight the clip. I'm making a video out of it. So I marked it in Poker Tracker and got the editing last night. But it was just funny to me. Like, that was how that sun run was going yesterday. See a min raise, and here's an interesting one. We are on the bubble here, okay? And here's the thing. I'm at 50K. The average stack is 123K. I have been slow playing this whole time, right? I've been at like 13 to 10 blinds for the past like 40 minutes or so. So when it comes to me, for the past like 15 minutes, I'm just taking my time, letting my time run all the way down and then folding. And because of that, it's obviously known that I'm trying to get in the cash, right? This is the biggest buy-in of the day. This is the 1650, the 10K guaranteed. So no bones about it, I'm trying to cash, right? And I'm not really in a position to make a run. So when you had a stack of 50K, and I think it was top 81 got paid, something like that. Top 81 got paid, and there was about, I think there was about 93 or 94 of us left. So we're not close, but I can definitely cash it if I don't do anything stupid, right? But this player, he was the table captainy guy. You see, he's the chip leader, right? So he's raising and stealing a lot on the button, or on the bubble, as he should. But he started coming after me, and I'm on his right. He shouldn't be raising out of first. The problem is all these other players, super passive. So this is coming back to me, and I feel like the only player that can counteract this, but I don't have the chips to. So I thought about it, and I was like, I know what this guy's doing. Okay. And I jammed all in with about 9 or 8 players away from the cash. It's in the video, the replay from last night. And he ends up folding because, of course, he does. He's got 45 blinds. He can't call 9 blinds here. And having that fold equity is so important to know. And now, after this pot, I have 65,000. Doesn't sound like much, but one double, and I'm above the average, right? So now I'm okay, and I'm going to cash, and I still have a shot. You know what I'm saying? So don't just give up. This is a different tournament now. So I'm in the big blind. Oh, this is a fun one. I'm in the big blind. Player makes it small. When you have 20 blinds and there's no small blind, if you have a hand you want to play, you can probably just rip it. Like, you definitely want to raise bigger than 2.2 at this stage of the tournament. That's for damn sure. I call because there's literally only cost me 1.2 to win 7.5. So I'm getting like 6.7 to 1. I flop the open ender. Not the greatest open ender, but it's still there. It goes check, check. Player bets a little less than half pot. To me, this is a jack. It's fine. It's fine. Could be jack 10. That would suck, but it's fine. We get called behind 2, and I make the straight. Now I'm out of position. I don't want this to go check, check. I have 24 blinds. There's 16 in the pot. I want to get the money in. So I bet 11.7. This is a great bet because somebody with jack 10 will just jam here. Somebody with 2 pair will just jam here. Somebody with jack queen will just jam here. A 10 won't just call. So if they have jack 10, they're going to jam. They're going to put me in now, right? And this guy's only got 15 blinds. This guy's got 35. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody should really be considering folding a good hand here. So what are the hands that are left? King, queen, right? The over and the gut shot. You know, like 9-10. But I think 9-10 jams. Like, to me, my hand is the nuts right now. And I'm not overly concerned about a 10 if they call and the straight comes on the river. I'm not really concerned about it, right? And this player just calls. I think this is never a 10, ever. And it wasn't in this scenario specifically, but I think it's never a 10 in game. I think in this scenario, you just put me in. It's double my bet to put me all in. Go ahead. If you have a 10 and jack 10, you're not trying to fold. Because what if a king hits the river, right? What if a king hits the river? I had 9-10 and you have jack 10. And a king hits the river. I'm going to jam. I'm jamming all rivers. That is known by the size of my stack. And now you have to fold jack 10 and my 9-10 wins. So that's why you would just put me in on the turn. So I'm not afraid of that hand. So when the queen comes off on the river, this is where I made the debatable mistake. There should never be a 10 out here. Does this player ever bluff? You know? Like, if I check here, does the player ever bluff like he has the 10? Hey, what's up, pocket? Like what if he might think he's beat, but he can turn jack king into a bluff? He could even have a hand as strong as jack 9, right? Like, or jack 8, I guess, or 8-9 maybe. Maybe he can turn those hands into a bluff. This is the thing I couldn't figure out last night. And so when the queen came off, I was like, well, no free showdowns. That was what I went with. Because I feel like a 10 is never out there. So I jammed it, and he folded. And to me, that says that he had top pair, and he wouldn't have bluffed the river because he would have been trying to get to a showdown. I think if he had queen jack, he still would have called me. I think it's interesting, though. But I'm not 100% convinced this was the right move. I think in some instances, I should check because I'm never folding. And making an extra, 12 and a half blinds is kind of huge. So if there's a chance this player bluffs in a scenario where I know for a fact he's never got a 10, unless he specifically had queen 10 in his hand, just the uber nuts, that's the one scenario. If he has queen 10, he's going to just call the turn. Because it's the uber nuts, there's no draws, it's whatever, right? But when a queen hits the river, it's kind of less likely, right? So I think this is a small judgment call mistake for this specific situation. Next time, if I'm ever in this situation again, which I will be, play millions of fucking hands, I'm going to check the river and call the jam, which I think is going to come quite often. I think it's 50-50. And if it's 50-50, then I make another 12 blinds, but never get called, then I shouldn't be betting. Like 50% of the time he bluffs, 50% of the time he doesn't. Okay, that's a 50% chance at 12.5 blinds. That's an expected value play of 6.25 blinds. If he never calls when I jam, that's 100% expectation of 0. It's actually negative because there are some instances where he has queen 10. And I didn't even allow there to be a bluff in his range. So I think it's a bigger mistake because of that. It's interesting though. This was funny. So this was very near the bubble, right? And I am the big stack, 60 blinds. This one you started out with 5,000 chips. I have 70,000, right? The average is 24,000 about, right? Player behind me has 27K, calls off. Thing to remember. This player raises at a second, and I'm like, you know what? If I 3-bet, right, to what? I'm going to 3-bet to like, because I'm in an earlier position and there's all these players behind, I'm going to make it 8 or 9 blinds, right? That's like a third of this guy's stack. So I'm not folding if he jams, and I don't want somebody behind me to jam and force out a hand I dominate. And I also don't want hands like pocket pairs that I'll have to race against for too big of an amount to call behind me, which would have been this guy exactly. And I just basically, I'm okay with playing with everybody. The only two I really don't want to race with are the initial raiser, right, which I'm putting him on the line for his tournament life, and this player. And obviously this one less because he's got 29 blinds. This guy has 22.5. But any one of these stacks would be great. So when he opens and I jam, if one of these stacks happens to have ace queen, they're going to race. You know what I'm saying? Because this just looks so ludicrous. The truth of the matter is, though, it isn't. Because I'm playing his effective stack. If I had 27 blinds here with ace king suited, boom. The money just goes in because a 3-bet is pointless. Because I'm just putting too much money in the pot. I don't want to give myself an opportunity to get beat by somebody behind. As it is, this fucking guy, we were on the bubble. Like, we were 2 players away from the cash. And this player decided to call off cold versus an open in second and a 3-bet jam that covers the table. And I had not been playing wild. This is the first time I had done anything that seemed wild. But I just rolled over the 3rd best hand in poker. Like, what the fuck? So I was fucking furious when this guy called. I was like, this is a guy who I shouldn't be at this much risk. And of course I flopped the 9. He flops the 9. And everything sucks until I fucking hit the runners and make the fucking straight. And he totally fucking deserved it. And he bubbled the fuck out. Fuck that dude. That was a bad play. Total Sunday moron. Hilarious. And now I just have a fucking pile. I have 100K in that thing. Oh, this is my favorite hand of the day. It kind of seems silly that ace is my favorite hand, but this was so huge. Check this out. Oh, no, this isn't the one. This isn't the one. I raised, got called twice. I bet half pot, and they just folded. I just marked this one because I wanted to analyze and I wanted to look up if the ace is in first, if I should just be jamming. How did I do yesterday? I ended up tripling my buy-ins. So I bought in for $55 and I profited $120. So more than 3 times my buy-ins I got back. I won like 170 something. So it was a good day. I bubbled one final table and I came in 15th in another one and 38th in another one. So yeah. Yeah. It was a final table bubble. It was an 8-handed final table. So I actually got ninth, which was funny to me. Whatever. But I wanted to look it up. So we're talking about ace under the gun with 11 blinds. And normally I would just open rip it to look weak, but the table was so tight that I thought, you know what, maybe this is an instance where I don't need to be all in. But I did want to look it up. 11 big blinds, under the gun. What do you do with aces? Yeah, you raise. At 10 big blinds, you raise. You don't jam because you're trying to get action. Cool. I just wanted to double check it. What is it at 12 big blinds? Yeah, it's still a raise. What about 15? Still a raise. 20? Still a raise. 25? 30? 40? Yeah, it's just out of first position. It's just a raise. Maybe at 8 big blinds, it can become a jam just to look super weak. But we were already in the cash in this one, and I kind of have to play it a little bit differently. So I think if I had jacks in first, well, I guess I should have looked at it. Well, duh, dumbass. Hang on. I guess I should have just opened my fucking eyes and looked at it. Hang on, let's check it out. Let's go back. What hand's an open rip under the gun? I'm going to say minimum 8s. Pocket 8s. I'm not guessing. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember the chart. Position under the gun 1, 10 big blinds. Or no, under the gun, sorry. 10 big blinds, race first in. What's the first jam hand? 10s is the first one. Bottom one is 6s. 8s is an all-in 84% of the time, and a raise only 16%. But you can see that 9s is an all-in. So these are just all-ins. So 6s plus jams in first with 10 big blinds. What about 12? Because I was on 11. Okay, then we're getting into 7s. All right, so 7s. Yeah, I'm comfortable with 7s. Interesting. Fun. All right. Pocket 8s. Hey, look at this. I got pocket 8s. This was hilarious. Check it out. So I got 67K, right? The average is 102. We're not in the cash yet. We're about 20 off the cash, which isn't that particularly close. I think only top 80 we're getting paid in this. 81, something like that. But I can't fold the 8s. So this is an absolute jam. And near the bubble. Now, I'm going to look at it. Let's see. 15 big blinds, under the gun. It's a raise. Look at that. What is it at 12? See, here's my thing. We're on the bubble, so your stack plays shorter because players are tighter. So I think I can actually jam with it. 20 big blinds, raise. Yeah, I think I could actually jam with it. I think it's just better. And I did jam. Got called. Or raised all in. And turned out to be a straight race. Just ace-king suited. Now, if I raised and this player jammed, same result, right? But that's why you're raising, is because at 16 blinds, you don't mind the action. Like when that chart says, this chart, 15 big blinds, is telling you to raise in first with pocket 8s. If you get 3-bet, you're going all in, right? So now look, you're under the gun versus a 3-bet all in from the other person's position of under the gun +1, I believe he was. You call it off with 8s. So that's the whole thing. You're trying to get the money in because the hand is so strong. But I just went ahead and ripped it. Obviously, it's the same difference. So I think either way is fine. This is a funny one. This is part of the Sun Run highlights. So this player limps. He only has 17 blinds behind. Should kind of be jamming here, right? Like, let me show you the chips here. He's got 27,000. The average is 48. You can kind of just jam, right? You don't really have to have a raising range here. But you definitely don't want a limping range. Like, this should be aces a lot. But I have 73 fucking blinds to start the hand. I am the literal chip leader. Why are you limping on my blind? If you have aces, maybe it's a good move. But come on, dude. You don't have that. I make the 7. He bets now the full pot. This is one of two things. A weak-ass hand or an absolute overpair. And I was like, how often does this guy have the overpair here? So because of all the draws and the limped pot, I decided just to put them all in because he didn't have enough chips to really threaten me. And if I call, I don't think, he continues very often with something bad. So I decided to go ahead and go for it. And he actually had pocket 8s. Why you don't jam pocket 8s there is fucking beyond me. Even a raise, would make more sense. Like if he raised and then I checked the flop and he bet and I check raised and then he went all in, even with his low stack, I might think about just folding the 7s. But it's kind of hilarious. So that to me is just an example of, you gotta be jamming when it's your turn to jam. I decided to limp as the big stack. You can see I got even more chips now. It's fucking nuts. Here, check this out. The average is 48K. I have 147. Like, I am the literal chip leader in this tournament for like 3 hours. I decided to limp it. Player checks. I check. He checks. I found a very specific bet that I liked of 1.24. I actually typed this one in. And I've been flirting around with what's the right move here. Because one big blind in this scenario can be too little. 2 blinds is too much. 1.5 is too much. So I decided to type this one in to make it look funky. He did call, and then I decided just to bet again. Because we're just more than likely up against third pair. Like, this is a queen quite often. Or a flush draw, right? So now I just go ahead and bet 2/3. And I've kept the pot small by not betting 1.5 on the turn. I can bet smaller on the river. And this works out perfectly. There's a nice little blind versus blind. Kind of the long way around to steal, right? But I think it worked great. This is my favorite hand. Okay, so check this out. This was another tournament, a different tournament. I have 190K, right? I have been at or below the average for like an hour and a half. And it's like I've been knocked down to like half stack and, just below average for so fucking long. This was the big one, the 1650 10K. Player raises the 2 big blinds. I could just call it and try to get squeezed behind. I mean, this player was kind of wild, but I was like, you know what? I'm going standard. I have 30 blinds. That's a lot to get in the pot at this point. So I make this standard, smaller 3-bet on the button. The small blind decides to jam all the chips in and makes this thing very easy. And, of course, we get it in 3 ways. Queens, 10s, and I go from 190K to 526, almost 527K. I literally was below the average for like 2 hours in this tournament, and severely. And then I just jumped straight into first place. I became the chip leader in one hand. So it was a really great, awesome one. Ugh. Ban. I'm a fucking idiot. I hate that shit, man. What bots? Fucking bots. So yeah, really awesome hand. Took me to the chip lead. And I went really far. I ended up going out in that tournament in 15th place. I took a beat later for a lot of chips, but man, I went card dead after those aces. Like those aces won me all the chips at once that I could have won over the next few hours if I had just gotten mediocre good hands. But I won them all in that one hand. And then just went totally card dead for quite a while. And bad situations. I don't think I made any bad choices, but just whatever. Pocket sixes. I make it 2.2 on the button. I see a jam. This was an interesting one because I had to think about it. At this point in the tournament, this is much later. This is the same stack, but you can see now 440K is the average, not 127K. So I'm a little bit off of it. I'm still above the average. And I thought about it and I was thinking, is this just a situation where I have to take this, right? So I wanted to run the math live on stream. And I'm going to do that now. So it'll be his 18.5 plus my 18.5 in the pot, plus the blinds and antes. We'll call it 2 because my small blind is absorbed by my bet. 39 blinds. And it costs me, what is that, like 16.3. Okay, so 16.3 divided by 39 big blinds. I have to win 41% of the time to break even. Obviously, we're not trying to break even. We're trying to get to better. So if it's a race, I should call it. Well, this is what I had to think about yesterday. So I'm going to show you how my brain did it. Small blind. In this scenario, he's jamming. I know the range. I'm not even going to look it up. He's jamming all these hands. You can jam this, this, and this. This is just a standard jam spot for a lot of players. I think even some players go even lower here with the ace-9 and such. But this is a conservative 18 to 20 big blind jamming range. I think this is fine. So you apply this, right? And then add my actual hand, 2 sixes, and run the equities. I'm 44% versus this range. And what you can also do when you see this is you can apply it to this and then go to the tools and use the hand range calculator. What hands do I need to call to win 43, 44% of the time? Let's say 44%. Calculate the range. Look at that. 6-6 plus. Ace-9 plus suited, Jack-7 suited, or King-Jack suited, Ace-10 off, and King-Queen off. So this is a call all day long because it's profitable. And I was proud that I made this call, even though it was the most dramatic fucking loss ever, where he flopped the queens, and I was like, oh, come on, 6! Like, because if I win this pot, man, that gets me to, like, well, let's see here. That gets me to like, like 800,000. I jump up huge. I definitely final table from here. It's just one of those bad ones. This took me out in 15th place. But if I win it, I'm at double the average and heading to the final table. Looking pretty good. I think final table average was something like 900K, so I would have already like had it pretty much. And he didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. You know what I'm saying? If you wanna look at his range, what it's supposed to be by the books, let's check it out. He's 20 blinds in the small blind versus a raise from, where am I? Am I in the, yeah, I'm on the button. Versus a raise from the opponent's position on the button. King Queen off is a jam all day. If he has 15 blinds, it's a jam all day. If he has 25 blinds, it's a jam all day. It's just one of those hands, man. It's perfect. If you have 30, you can squeeze, I get. Nope, you're still jamming 30. About 40. You're jamming 60% of the time at 40 big blinds and 3-betting a third of the time. About 60. You're 3-betting 60, calling 40, and then at 80, you're 3-betting 100% of the time. So, yeah. So he didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. You just got to win a race sometimes, man, and I didn't win this one. And here's the thing. Even if we would have just gotten it in on the turn, right? Even if he didn't want to risk it all, because it would have just gone check on the flop, and then I'd have hit the 6 in the turn, and we would have just gotten it right in. So Just one of those ones that was destined to lose. See a raise. I make the call. We see 8-10 queen. He checks. I decide to check back. Player checks the turn. And I felt, you know what? I'm going to flick a bet out here because I could have a 10 very easily. And this bet looks like a 10 or nothing. And he folds. And it was very interesting how easy that was to do. So, a lot of great hands from yesterday. Hey, what's up, Lulz? Yeah, I'm doing really good, man. I was just going through yesterday's hands. If you haven't seen it yet, it's up on the VODs. It was a total sun run for most of the day. And then right at the end, lost a race. I win that race. We're talking about my final table run in the big 10K yesterday. So that'll happen. And that's just something you got to come to terms with. So it is almost 1 o'clock. Courtney should be home soon. She's been out all weekend. We want to go to lunch, and I may come back later and play some cash games. I don't think I'm going to play any tournaments. Kind of yesterday was exhausting. I wanted to do some hand quizzes, but that took a long time. There was a lot of great hands to go over there. But yeah, I'm probably going to play some cash later today, just because I'm very hyped up on poker. I feel really good, and I love that Zoom poker, man, or what do they call it, Blitz on ACR. Yeah, the Blitz poker is a ton of fun, so probably coming back to do some of that. And yeah, so there's a lot of players out there. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys off to a host. Go ahead and enjoy the host I send you. Expand your mind. Enjoy yourself. And know that this is one of my favorite streamers I'm going to host. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you later.